Meantime, let's bring in David van Wyk. He is the lead researcher at the Benchmarks Foundation. The foundation has done extensive research into illegal mining, particularly on Gauteng's West Rand. David, thanks for your time as always. I'd like to talk about the structural failures at play here. Our previous guest telling us this is not an issue that should focus solely on the illegal mining suspects themselves, but there are several other role players in this chain that results in illegal mining.
Well, yes, I think that the first step in the chain is the abandonment of mines, the 6,000 mines in South Africa that are abandoned by large-scale corporations. And why that is allowed, it should not be allowed at all. It's illegal. It's a crime to abandon a mine. The second step would be the abandonment of workers that used to work on those mines, who find themselves very often without their pensions and packages. The pension funds simply don't pay out pensions and so on. There's 44 billion rands that are not paid out. A third factor would then be the unemployment and inequality in the country, the poverty and so on that people are faced with and so on, that makes them become desperate. Another factor is the SANDF and the police losing weapons because the country is awash with guns. The most common weapon used in these instances are the 9mm parabellum, which is standard issue police arm, the R4 rifle, the R4 assault rifle, which is used by the military and which is used by the police as well. There isn't adequate control. People are allowed to take their weapons home instead of handing them in the evenings when they finish their shifts, and these weapons often go missing when they are no longer in the normal duty day where they are. And they also get used in violence against women and children at home by policemen themselves. So that also is a very big problem. The fact that weapons are so freely available. Of course, the last one being the AK-47, and that came out of Angola, Mozambique, Namibia and so on. When the wars ended in the early 1990s, a lot of these weapons found their way back into South Africa and now are being used in crime all over the country. Now, the other factor is the chain, the value chain, the chain. Who does the gold get sold to, and who are the syndicates that control these operations? Because what is happening in Sporong seems to me clearly an attempt to take over the area by a syndicate. If people move in there with weapons and they threaten the community and so on, it is clear that they want to establish control, and they want to establish control for a purpose. Now, that Randfontein area is an area of extensive gold, uranium, and silver mining. Now, who is buying the gold? And our experience is that security companies can be involved, labor broker subcontractors, as well as people who are in the scrap metal industry. But we have also been informed that there are smelters and processing plants that are actually processing illegal gold as well. Formal plants that are processing illegal gold as well. Now, the concern that I have with this, with Vala and Kodi and the other security operations, is that they go for the mine workers, the most exploited element in this chain. They never go for the people on top, the syndicate bosses and so on. And that for me is a problem, because the syndicate boss is not someone who goes underground. The syndicate boss is someone who gets wealthy from the work that people do when they are underground. Now, many of the Zama Zamas that I've interviewed tell me that they get their explosives underground in stockades that have been left there by mining companies. And I often wonder why mining companies would leave stockades underground. The other aspect of it is the issue of mercury. An eye drop bottle of mercury is 2,500 rands. Now, it's very expensive. Those guys that are underground are not the people who are buying the mercury. They are supplied with mercury. A 20-bottle liter of mercury costs 65,000 rands. It's a proscribed material. You are not supposed to be able to buy it easily on the market. But I can tell you, if I Google mercury sale for mining in South Africa right now, I will get it even on Facebook. And the large-scale mines no longer use mercury. They stopped using mercury early in the 20th century. The small guys are still using mercury because that's the easiest way to extract the gold, but it's also a very destructive practice in terms of the environment. The other aspect is the failure to rehabilitate. In 2010, there was a plan to create a green belt all along Main Reef Road and rehabilitate that entire area where these mines used to be. But that never took off because the Department of Mineral Resources kept on issuing licenses to dubious mining companies such as Mintails, which went bankrupt without actually producing much gold, but doing a lot of environmental destruction. And in my opinion, opening up the space for small-scale and illegal miners to come in. Now, the National Association of Artisanal Miners actually engaged with government and tried to get this thing formalized and regulated and controlled. But there doesn't seem to be a political will to establish the necessary infrastructure and so on to ensure that small-scale mining is not as destructive as it is at the moment. You know, the thing is that the mining industry is changing. Minerals are not renewable, therefore mining is not sustainable. Therefore, we have to move to smaller scale mining where huge large scale mines used to operate. And there's a lot of infrastructure there that could have been of great use to local government. There used to be hospitals, clinics, workshops, sport and recreation facilities, housing, and so on, all of which could have been very useful in terms of addressing the housing crisis in South Africa, in terms of addressing the energy crisis and so on as well. The environmental impact is also very problematic because these shafts release methane at an alarming rate. You know, I know of one shaft that releases 6,000 liters of methane per second. Methane is a major climate chaos gas. And, you know, we really need to capture this methane. We can commercialize it if we do. We need to repurpose old mines and so on instead of allowing them to be plundered. You know, if you go to Main Reef Road and you drive along Main Reef Road all the way from Benoni right through to the West Rand, to Randfontein and so on, it looks as if it has been bombed out. It looks like Gaza in some places, you know, because everything, all the infrastructure that is there has been destroyed, infrastructure that could have been properly used if there was a transition plan. But we don't seem to plan in South Africa. We always wait for a crisis before we then sit up and say, oh, we should have done something, instead of doing things preemptively.
David, I think you've summed up all of the big issues insofar as the scourge of illegal mining is concerned. Thanks very much for your time. David van Wyk is a lead researcher at the Benchmarks Foundation.